Preface. These novellas and everything in Galaxis Chronicles is a way to give people context and flesh out the people and places all around the universe. This novella in particular is a change of pace. It is jam-packed with action and showcases some soldiers in the middle of a really intense mission. Enjoy! Chapter 1. Rough Faces. Skip let go of his plasma rifle receiver. The mechanism clicked satisfyingly into place. He had shortened the barrel and added a close-range scope to it. He and his fellow unberührbar untouchables were allowed to do this. Customizing weapons and choosing your own kit was authorized as long as your image didn't contradict the Empire. His legs dangled from his top bunk. "You got the details, Skip?" a feminine voice asked him. Slice was the scout for their ragtag group of killers. She was strapping what appeared to be endless throwing knives to her thighs. "Nothing yet," Skip replied with a deep, scruffy voice. He scratched at his long, fuzzy beard. "You nervous?" Slice looked up from what she was doing, nodding at a man with slicked-back dark hair. "You joking?" Newbie scoffed. "I am a killing machine, Slice." She shook her freshly shaved head at him. He was by far the youngest of the group, barely out of the academy. In reality, it was less of an academy, a compound outfitted for creating the unberührbar. Still, he was part of the best the Empire had to offer. They turned their heads, and a burly, dark man whistled at them. "What is it, Beef?" Skip asked him. Beef, although quite short, was more than likely capable of knocking out anyone with a single blow of his meaty fists. Skip was sure of it. He carried a Schnellfeuer, a machine gun, and acted as support when things got hairy in a firefight. He had 2 large golden earrings to remind himself of where he came from. "Briefing time," Skip nodded at him. "Ready?" He walked past Newbie, who smirked and nodded, full of confidence. Slice clipped her respirator on, and they made their way down the ship's long metal corridor to its bridge. Flight crew members sat in their chairs, some adjusting ship functionality to prepare for takeoff, while others made sure these preparations were done correctly. Jumpy, their radio operator, was already waiting with Hauptmann Hart, their mission commander. Their forces reported directly to the Ancients, but sometimes they would be used for ancillary military missions, which meant they had to follow military command. "What's the mission?" Skip asked. He nudged Jumpy, who returned a buck-toothed smile. He adjusted his small spectacles. Jumpy joined the Doom Squad, as they were known, at the same time Skip did. His knowledge of communications and his skill in team management had saved them on many missions. They had also seen many faces perish in their time serving. Skip was happy to be promoted to squad leader. "No salute. You untouchables are all the same." Hauptmann Hart scorned the rugged-looking group. Skip forced out a salute. "They asked us here because your grunts can't handle Sector 4, Skip thought. "Very well, your mission," Hart said, pointing to the planet they were hovering above. Sector 4 was the latest target sector of the Silver Empire. They had great hopes to find more resources, manpower, or a new technology that could aid their ever-growing expanse. So far, all planets within the sector were barren and devoid of life or anything useful. Skip and his group were sent to a few of these fringe planets. "Tip of the spear," the Ancients reassured them every time they plunged into a mission so dangerous and foolish only they could make it back. Hart zoomed in, using his hands as the digital image of the map expanded. "We sent a Truppentransporter, troop support carrier, a couple of weeks or so ago, but we lost communications with it." "And why are we risking our lives for a few grunts?" Hart looked at Skip. "Well, Skip, the orders from up high are to retrieve the probe data from that carrier." Skip pressed his lips together and folded his arms, nodding slightly at Hart. "What's on this probe?" Skip doubted Hart was telling them the entire truth. They were trained extensively on how to read behavior, and after spending a few jumps with a man, you get to know a few things about him. The Empire believes that Pallas could have rare resources which could help prop up its economic power in the galaxy even further. Of course, this is about Selton. Skip often wondered about the validity of their missions. He had his own mission in mind, of course. That was to keep the 4 people under his command alive. All of them plucked from fringe planets like he was, honed and carved for years to become the ultimate fighting force, to blend in with local populations and, when possible, to enforce the Empire's will at all costs. "Very well, Hauptmann. We will get your probe, but how are we getting on the planet?" "Breach pill," Hart said. The group sighed in unison. "Breach pill," Jumpy interjected in a nervous voice. "We cannot risk another troop carrier going down. They are harder to come by every day." "We will get it done, Hauptmann," Skip reassured them after a small pause. Skip hated breach pills, a crude but effective device. Breach pills are large boarding crafts made to be shot from one ship to another, often at the bridge to cause as much damage to the ship as possible and disable the leaders of the enemy forces. In recent times, ship commanders have used them to rapidly deploy squads without endangering their troop transports. Hart saluted. "For the Emperor and our beloved towers." Skip returned the salute and exited the bridge. Jumpy walked beside him and waited until they were out of earshot range. He grabbed Skip's shoulder. "I have a bad feeling about this one, Skip. Jumpy, the day you feel good about a mission is the day I will be worried." Jumpy adjusted his spectacles. When he first met Jumpy, he couldn't believe he was an untouchable. But after hearing about him single-handedly toppling a planet's economy through clever market maneuvering and having that leader executed, he understood that he was the very definition of an untouchable, hiding in plain sight. Their very existence was a rumor on most planets, so to have 5 of them together, acting as a military unit, was something truly rare. "Don't worry, Jumpy, you know I'll protect you," Slice said, teasing him. He scoffed at her. Skip looked at the faces staring back at him. He had come to understand Beef's expressionless face. Newbie never hid his feelings. "Well, I hate it personally," Newbie said out loud, and "Grab your gear, get yourselves ready to jump," he ordered. The group returned a unified "Yes, Skip." Chapter 2. Swampy Green. Skip buckled his harness in place. The group were consumed by a pulsing red light. They sat snugly in a circle around the center of the breach pill, all back to back. A voice crackled over the intercom. "Drop in 10. "Breathers on," ordered Skip. All of them clipped their respirators on. The intercom sounded off. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, release. The pill's light turned green, the craft shooting out into space at tremendous speed. The G-force pressed them back into their seats. The pill creaked and groaned as they moved through space. Beef and Slice strained as the pill broke the planet's atmosphere. The already uncomfortable ride became even more unbearable. Skip could hear the 2 of them breathing over their comms. The roaring of the descent was quieted by the sudden, breathtaking landing of the pill. The group were flung forward, their harnesses at maximum capacity. The light flashed green once again, and an automated voice repeated the phrase, "Disembark." A small explosion peeled open the panels around them. "Well, listen to the machine," yelled Skip. They all unbuckled their harnesses and hastily made their way out of the pill. The swampy mud below felt soft underfoot. "We good?" Skip asked, his plasma rifle drawn, aiming at the thick, soupy fog ahead of them. "Good," they all replied one by one, except Beef. He grunted in acknowledgement. Skip turned to Slice. "Pull it up." Slice ran over, her boots sloshing in the shallow water and mud. They had landed in an opening, scattered swamp trees and long roots all around them. Slice clipped a blipper to her forearm and opened its monitor, an expensive modern device that allowed a special forces team to see friends from foes. It also allowed for custom markers like the objective they were heading to. A small green triangle pinged off in the distance, indicating their objective. She clicked a button and turned a knob on the blipper. It displayed 1,276 meters. "Great, you scout ahead. I will confirm jump success and we will join you soon." "Consider it done." Slice pulled out a meter-long pole from her pack, a pulse spear, and clicked a button on its side. It expanded to 3 times its length. Slice then planted it into the ground next to them. The device made a slight, low thump, causing bubbles around its immediate area. She opened the screen and presented it to Skip. Every time the spear thumped, it would show them as blue dots on her screen and the fallen ship as the green triangle ahead. Skip pulled out a similar screen and strapped it to his arm. He confirmed the pulse spear was synced to it. "Get it done," he ordered. She nodded and jogged through the muck toward the objective, fading into the soupy fog. Jumpy adjusted the large radio on his back and stood beside Skip. "Hate breach pill dives." "You and me both." Skip reached for the microphone on the radio strapped to Jumpy's back. He clicked a button and pulled a lever. Lifting it to his ear, he heard a low whirring sound vibrating from it. "Spear to Firebird, we have landed and are proceeding to objective. How copy?" There was a small delay. "Copy, Spear. Good luck, and towers be with you." Skip put the microphone back. "Let's move," he ordered. Skip adjusted his backpack and rig as the squad moved ahead, the pulse spear pinging them their objective and Slice a few hundred meters ahead. The muddy swamp water reduced their movement speed. Skip walked ahead, Jumpy close by with the radio, Newbie behind him and Beef at the back ready to fire his Schnellfeuer when ordered. Skip was unnerved by the eerie silence. It was dense, just like the fog. Wading slowly through the ankle-deep swamp, they headed toward their objective. "Awfully quiet," Jumpy whispered behind him. The screen on his arm blipped every time it passed over their blue dots. "Nothing quite like wasting the Empire's top resource on data collection," Newbie chimed in. "Quiet, Newbie," Beef ordered sternly. "Why do you still call me Newbie? We've been on 7 missions together," he said in a hushed tone, frustration seeping into his words. Skip's device blipped one time too many. Looking at the screen, he saw a red dot had appeared near Slice's location. It was moving. "Trouble up ahead, double time. Stay on my ass, you two. Move, move." They moved at speed now, lifting their knees high as they bolted toward Slice and the potential threat. Skip stared down as they closed in, ducking past some low vines. Newbie tripped over a branch. Skip slowed for a moment and saw Beef helping him up, so he continued forward. The red dot pinged again, ever closer to Slice. Skip tapped it, bringing up the distance statistics. 102 meters appeared. "Almost there. Keep pace. Staggered formation." They ran forward, weapons trained ahead. They slowed to a tactical pace, ensuring they could comfortably aim their weapons. The pulse spear pinged Slice, but the red dot had disappeared. The hair on the back of Skip's neck stood up. "What the hell?" Skip held up a fist. Jumpy and Beef stopped. He crouched down and scanned ahead through his scope. He clicked a button on its side, switching it to heartbeat mode. It revealed Slice, safely up a tree about 80 meters or so ahead. The scope registered heartbeats in an approximate vicinity. Again, only Slice. He scanned ahead, but he picked nothing up. Usually, between his heartbeat scope and the pulse spear, they never struggled to find anything. "Skip!" came the call from behind him. He turned his head. He heard it before he saw it. An insectoid creature loomed over him, locked onto him with dead black eyes. Its yellow-green carapace, a stark contrast to the dull grey of the swamp. The front half of its body was raised, endless rows of teeth bared as it hissed at Skip, while the back half supported its monstrous bulk. 3 long, slender tongues slithered out of its mouth. One of the tongues shot out at Skip. He ducked sideways, narrowly avoiding the spear-like appendage. "Damn it, it got me!" yelled Newbie. The tongue had pierced, then wrapped itself around his forearm. He swung his arm around, trying to free it. As Skip steadied his aim, a throwing knife came humming past his ear from behind. It hit the creature square between its dark, beady eyes. Skip fired along the same trajectory. Chunks of its head and body toppled into the water. It made a painful groan and it sunk down into the mud. The tongue around Newbie's arm had coiled even tighter, slicing it off in a single motion. Newbie screamed, "My arm!" Chapter 3, Clean Cut. "Cup it," Skip ordered. Jumpy ran over to Newbie, whose arm was hissing, white gas rising from it where the creature's tongue had wrapped around it. "What the hell is happening?" Newbie cried out. "Acid," said Jumpy as he reached for a circular rubber device. Skip grabbed hold of the sizzling stump, blood squirting out of it intermittently. Jumpy pulled the rubber cup over the exposed stump. It reacted instantly, tightening around the stump, sealing it perfectly. He then reached for a syringe with a blue liquid in it and injected it just above the cut. Newbie's face turned to relief as the Magischer Kleber, magic glue, was injected into his arm. A frontline medical technology that is known to save lives and limbs, it freezes all vessels and wounds in place with cryogel until proper aid could be administered. "You good?" Skip asked him. Newbie nodded, his hand resting in the shallows. "Cover!" yelled Beef. They all dropped down to the ground. Skip swung his rifle around. The creature was slowly rising back up. A large silver stinger protruded from its back. Letting out an ear-piercing screech, the thing charged. Unfortunately, this last-ditch effort to cause harm was met with a spray of heavy fire from Beef's machine gun. Beef paused to survey the damage he had done. The creature was riddled with holes, missing both eyes and half of its mouth. It still somehow managed to drag itself around on its remaining legs. Thick green blood bubbled out from within the holes left by Beef's volley. Skip unclipped a grenade from Newbie's belt, removed the pin, and heaved it toward the wounded creature. The beast hissed in the direction of the explosive, and at the same time, the popper grenade began to pulse loudly, vibrating the space around them all. With a great crescendo, the final pulse of the grenade chimed, and a violent wave of energy expanded outward from it, instantly disintegrating what remained of the creature. It sent various insect bits and mud upward, only for it to rain down on Skip and the other guys. "Let's see you survive that, you bastard." A loud, all-too-familiar screeching came from the direction of their objective. "Whatever we're fighting, it knows we're coming now." Slice jumped down from her perch in the swamp tree. She had been scouting the objective with her long gun, a scoped rifle that fired high-caliber bolts. It could bring down troop carriers and was a highly specialized weapon. Skip grabbed the microphone off Jumpy's backpack as he tended to Newbie. Beef lit up a burner. Streams of smoke began to pour from his mouth. He was inspecting the area where the grenade went off. Skip wasted no time in hailing the ship in orbit. Spear to Firebird, come in Firebird. Go for Firebird. We've got a man down, encountered an unknown entity. We believe they are guarding the objective as well. Copy, Spear. Proceed with the mission. Skip looked over his squad. I don't know what waits for us on the other side of this fog. How copy, Spear? Copy loud and clear, Firebird. Over and out. He clicked the microphone back in place. Medics can weave something together for you, grinned Beef as he wiggled 4 metal fingers in Newbie's face. Newbie spat into the water next to him, taking a swig from his canteen. Knock it off, Beef. Go hold the perimeter. Talk to me, Slice. What are we looking at? Check the blipper. She pointed to the monitor on her arm. 7 red dots appeared around the green triangle, their objective. It's the fallen troop carrier. It has our brothers surrounding it. Alive? No such luck. These things are buried into their spines. Must be some sort of hive mind. Skip scratched at his beard. Why do you say that? They don't move unless the larger one directs them to. Wherever it looks, so do they. They're in perfect sync. I presume their nest is what they're protecting. Our objective. She nodded. Skip waved Newbie over. His hair hung loosely to his face. They were all covered in dew from the thick fog. Skip? Can you do this one? Of course, Ski. Newbie, you don't need to prove anything. He grasped his shoulder. Can you do this? Newbie nodded. I can, Skip. Great, give your mines and grenades to Slice. You jump on her long gun mounted in the tree over there and cover us with Beef. Squad, huddle. They all came together in a semicircle. We'll do a bait and switch. Jumpy, Slice and I will attack front on, rushing toward them but keeping a safe distance. He held the screen on his wrist up to them, gesturing with his finger as he described the strategy. Once they run at us, assuming they do, Jumpy interjected. Slice nudged him hard in his side. Once they charge us, we will retreat, funneling them into Beef and Newbie's fire arc. We fall back here and take them out. Worst case, we turn to hand to hand. Beef flicked the remainder of his burner away. The water extinguished it instantly. Don't like this one, Skip, Beef spoke up. They all turned their heads. Jumpy being skeptical was something they had all come to expect. Beef, however, hardly ever said anything. He once told Skip that he only speaks when they need to hear it. I hate it, said Skip, but we have to get this done or we will die on this planet. Once we get the probe data on that ship, we can exfil. They all nodded, aside from Beef, who didn't break eye contact with him. Eventually he nodded and moved to set up his gun. Great, I'll report in then, we move out. Slice grabbed the Carver mines and grenades from Newbie. Look after her, she said. What? Newbie asked. My baby up in the tree. She gestured towards the long gun. Always, Newbie smiled at her with his perfect white teeth. Skip checked his own gear, then nudged Jumpy. You good? You know how I feel, Skip. I will always be more of a covert, behind-the-scenes operator. Skip scoffed at him. Don't I know it? He said as he pulled the microphone up to his mouth. Come in, Firebird. Go for Firebird, over. Mission update. Objective compromised, hostiles abundant. Moving to execute retrieval of the probe. Copy, Spear, you are clear. Towers guide and protect. Over and out. Skip clicked the microphone back in place. Please do not let me fail them now. Oh, mighty towers, give me your guidance, especially now when I need it most. Chapter 4, Purple Mist. Set? Skip's voice crackled over their comms. They all checked in. With knowledge of the plan and the method of execution, Skip, Slice and Jumpy advanced. Beef was prone behind them, his machine gun primed and ready. Newbie was on the long gun, doing his best to aim with his limited dexterity. The water in the swamp sloshed gently as they moved forward. The mist was heavy as ever. Luckily, their long gun had a thermal attachment which allowed Slice, and now Newbie, to spot their targets even in the low visibility. The objective was less than 200 meters away. Skip tapped their objective on his screen. It displayed 143 meters. Skip, they're looking restless. Newbie's worried voice wobbled in their ears. Another loud screech ahead confirmed it. Skip and his group crouched down, completely still. Move, they're coming, Skip, directly in front of you. The fog was still too thick for them to see more than 50 meters ahead. Slice, send 'em! She reached for a carver mine and tossed it as far ahead as she could. Then she threw another a bit closer to them. "Right on you, Skip." The snarling and growling reached them before they could see their fallen silver comrades. They slowly breached the fog, and the sight of their allies hit the group like a ton of bricks. Their faces were scarred with purple blood dripping from their eyes, mouths and nose, uniforms in tatters, white slobber and foam formed around their mouths, their arms flailing unceremoniously around as they growled, sprinting toward them. Skip gritted his teeth. "They're not our brothers anymore, squad. Shoot to kill." Their heads all twitched in unison as they received new orders. The larger one had vision on Skip, and with a series of clicks and growls, it sent forward the front two vessels at a sprint. "Hold!" yelled Skip. The growling increased, then a click, and the first carver mine behind them leapt out of the water, spinning. The barbed, stark rope extended from it, entangling the first two vessels, wrapping itself tight around them. They strained, and one of them reached out before they disappeared in a purple mist of guts and blood as the mine exploded. "Now!" Slice, Jumpy and Skip opened fire with their plasma rifles. Their bolts took limbs and clusters of flesh from the next controlled drone charging at them. A sound like thunder cracking exploded from behind them. The vessel that had been in front of them had disappeared, bar its legs. They ran for a few strides, then tumbled over, twitching and kicking violently. The residual energy from the long gunbolt tickled the exposed skin of the group. "Reloading!" Jumpy cried over their comms. Skip was in the middle of reloading himself. Their plasma rifles could only hold 3 bolt rounds per magazine, frustrating at a time when you needed hundreds. They had to be accurate or they would die. "Nice shot, newbie. Status up to—" Before he could finish, another vessel ran at them, mouth foamy white, grunting and squealing at them. Another click, and then a whirring sound as the second of the carver mines wrapped it in wire and exploded. Pale flesh and purple blood rained down on them, again. The big bug and the last 2 soldiers are holding at the carrier, Skip. "Copy," returned Skip, pointing forward. Slice and Jumpy rose in unison with him. "Beef, get your ass up here. We're going to need that gun." "Sir," Beef's deep voice rumbled. "On my mark, you put that big bastard in the ground, newbie," Skip ordered. "Got it, Skip." They heard Beef's steps sloshing towards them. He slowed to match their pace as he caught up. The fallen troop carrier was barely visible. Skip scanned through his scope, seeing 3 faraway dots pulsing on the heartbeat monitor of his scope. The screen on his arm confirmed they were all there. That confirms Slice's theory about it being a nest. "You got a shot, newbie?" "Hold on, Skip. Yep, got it. After newbie shoots, we take the ship. Beef, base of fire. Those last 2 vessels will come running." "Say the word, Skip," newbie confirmed. "Ready? Loose." Another thundercrack, another bright blue bolt tracer zipping overhead. They heard a loud screech, some scurrying, then complete silence. "They're coming," newbie confirmed. Beef unloaded on them with his machine gun, firing it in a horizontal pattern in the direction of their objective. The rest of the squad dropped, lying flat on their bellies. The final 2 vessels were now close enough to see. One had an arm missing, while the other had had half of its head destroyed with all of Beef's firing. "To death with these creatures," yelled Jumpy, firing his rifle. Slice and Skip joined in. They hit almost every shot, but the vessels kept running forward. Beef was mid-reload. As Skip hit the frontmost one in the ankle, it flopped over, doing a few tumbles forward, groaning angrily at them. The second jumped over its comrade, riddled with bolt holes, flesh, guts, and tattered uniform clinging to what remained of it. Slice dropped her empty rifle, sent 2 knives into its skull with perfect accuracy. It was unfazed. She drew her war axe. It was modified with the Empire's sigil proudly emblazoning its handle. The feral thing lunged at her. She sidestepped it, chopping its leg off at the thigh. It squirmed, trying to crawl toward her, hissing and screeching with every inch. They could see the small yellow insect burrow deeply into the soldier's spine. Skip slapped his receiver back in place. He sent a bolt through the insect. It burst into pieces. Water bubbled around its exploded carcass. The soldier finally stopped moving. The one Skip initially shot was now dragging itself by one arm toward them. The soldier's bloodshot eyes were devoid of any thoughts now. Skip walked forward to finish it off. He raised his rifle, and just as he was about to squeeze the trigger, the body convulsed and flopped over once, then another time, and then once more. The creature released the soldier's spine and darted toward Skip's face. He ducked, a flash of endless rows of teeth passing overhead. The insect was much, much smaller than the one they engaged with initially. The creature darted around in the water, evading Jumpy and Skip's bolt fire. It lunged at Skip again. This time, however, a knife buried itself deep into its side. Slice had hit it mid-air with a throwing knife. The thing squirmed, writhing in pain. Beef planted his Kurtz blade through it. It wriggled a few more seconds, then finally lay motionless. "What the hell are these things?" Jumpy asked, wiping a mixture of sweat and mist droplets from his brow. Chapter 5, Jumpy. Skip turned his head to a squelching sound. Slice had pried her blade free from the creature. The knife sizzled with the thing's green blood. She shook it off and holstered the knife. "Spear to Firebird." Skip turned his head back, speaking into the microphone hanging from Jumpy's backpack. "Go for Firebird. Targets around objective neutralized, beginning our search of the ship for the probe data." The group stood at the base of the troop carrier. The vehicle had an open platform between the cockpit and the back of the ship. It allowed troops to be carried into and out of the battlefield quickly and effectively. The larger green and yellow insect was slumped over the roof of the craft. Newbie's shot had disintegrated its head. It was 3 times the size of the one they had encountered initially. "Copy, Spear. Keep us post—" Suddenly Slice screamed, "Skip! Look out!" Skip swung around toward the ship. The creature's stinger was poised to shoot, and shoot it did. With nigh-inhuman speed, Skip dropped into a prone position. As he landed, he heard a thudding, followed by a wheeze behind him. Turning about once again, his whole body weakened as he laid eyes on his communications expert. "Jumpy!" he yelled. The creature's stinger had pierced the man's chest and now protruded out of his back. The creature, still half alive, dragged its mangled head up. Half of it was missing. It proceeded to let out a loud, bellowing screech. Beef and Slice opened fire. The beast jumped down as the bolts continued to pierce its flesh. It reared up in anger and was met with a thundering blue flash. Its stinger exploded, raining down green acidic blood. It writhed in pain, swaying side to side, bumping into the fallen troop carrier, collapsing to the ground next to it. Its legs twitched and it hissed as it died. "No half measures," Skip ordered, nodding at Slice, who in turn sprinted ahead and tossed the last of Newbie's popper grenades toward it. The grenade pulsed a few times, finally bathing the area around it in deadly energy. The explosion sent legs and pieces of insect into the air. It was bloody carnage. "Clear?" Skip asked. Jumpy had slumped down into the water next to Skip. "Clear, Skip," Newbie confirmed from his perch in the tree. "That's what you said the first time you hit it, idiot," Slice piped up. "Cut it out, Slice. Get over here." Beef and Slice ran over. Skip held Jumpy in his arms. A small red stream poured from his mouth onto his dark uniform. "What a way to go," Jumpy mumbled. Skip stripped the blipper from his forearm, clicked a knob, and pressed a button. Holding it up to Jumpy's chest, he scanned his heart. An alert flashed on the device. "Triage unit required. Seek Weaver immediately." As Skip moved it slowly around the rest of Jumpy's torso, the alert continued to flash. Lungs, stomach, bowels, liver, kidneys. The acid from the stinger was destroying his insides. "No!" Skip cried out, desperately scanning him again and again. The alert message continued to flash. "That bad, huh?" Jumpy replied. Beef had started applying magic glue around the exit wound of the stinger. Jumpy gently grabbed his arm. He'd started shaking. Beef looked at him, his face covered in sweaty droplets. "Don't waste that on me," he groaned in agony. "Skip, we No go, Slice," Jumpy grunted. Skip grabbed his hand and held him close. "You served your empire well, brother." Jumpy nodded. A small smile formed on his now pale face. Skip placed Jumpy's hand on his chest. He stood up and drew his plasma pistol, cocked it back, and sent a single shot through Jumpy's skull. A neat stream of blood ran from the entry wound. Beef closed his comrade's eyes and mouth and pulled out a thick, weatherproof blanket, a sturm deck. He laid it carefully over his fallen comrade's face. Newbie had joined up with them. He was a few paces away from them when Slice sent him a disapproving glance. "Is he dead?" "Yes." Beef looked up at him. "How many of us need to die here? Guide me now, Towers. I need your strength." Skip reached underneath his shirt collar and pulled out a necklace. An image of the 3 Galaxian towers hung from it. Hunched over Jumpy's body, he rubbed the image gently and cleared his throat. "Grab his radio, Newbie," Skip ordered. "I can't let us fall apart now. We have to be strong. The mission is almost over." Skip thought. "Come in, Spear," the radio crackled. Beef held it out to Newbie as he strapped it on. "Go!" Skip grabbed the microphone. "What is going on down there?" We lost Jumpy. One of the creatures feigned its death, drew us in and surprised us." There was a long pause from Hauptmann Hart. Sorry to hear that, Skip. We'll be entering the carrier now. We'll keep you posted. Copy. Over and out. Skip clicked the microphone into the radio pack on Newbie's back. Skip, I swear, I saw it fall. I was sure it was finished. Skip looked at him. Our blippers didn't even pick it up, Newbie. Don't let it eat you up. The young man nodded, then looked down at the blanket covering Jumpy. Skip gently tapped his shoulder with a semi-formed fist. All right, let's get the data from this damn ship so we can get the hell out of here. They formed up behind Skip. Slice had packed away her long gun. Skip handed him his plasma pistol and some ammo. They approached the fallen troop carrier. The water was still sizzling with the blood of the fallen creature. Bits of it floated all around them. Beef spat at it as they walked carefully along debris leading into the carrier, avoiding the acid. The cockpit was a bloody mess. Both pilots had stingers in their chests, similar to Jumpy. Skip made a clicking sound, looking for further clues. Slice had opened a panel in the cockpit. She stuck a cable from the blipper on her arm into a port underneath the removed panel. A boot sequence followed. Beef had opened the back end of the carrier. "Skip!" Beef called out in his rough voice. As Skip rounded the end of the carrier, the first thing that hit him was the stench, a mixture of rotting flesh and festering blood. What he saw before him was what they had believed: a nest. A web-like substance hung throughout the rear compartment, holding a large collection of eggs. Each egg was about as big as Skip's hand. Beef pulled at some of the webbing with a finger, the acidic residue fizzing on the surface of his glove. "We shouldn't be here," Beef said softly. "Got it," said Slice from the front of the ship. Newbie sat on one of the metal seats in the main compartment. His head hung low. "Got the data, Skip. Call it in. Let's get off this place." Copy. Chapter 6. The Sun. "Come in, Firebird. We've got the data. How copy over?" "Copy, Spear." "Great. Use second pulse spear as marker for evac." Slice gave him a thumbs up from outside the carrier as she readied the spear. He heard Beef move around up top. He was ordered to watch the perimeter. "Hold on, Spear." The static crackled in Skip's ear. "I regret to inform you that there has been a change of plan." "This can't be happening. If they don't get us out of here, I will skin Heart myself," Skip thought. Change of the plan, change of plan. You can stick your plan up your filthy silver ass, Heart." The radio went silent. "The data indicates a group wandered off to an old facility built a few decades back." "Heart, are you listening to me?" "I read you, Spear. Nothing is alive past this point. This planet is a forsaken, infested mess. We are requesting evac now." The radio went silent again. Skip pressed the microphone to his forehead in frustration. Newbie stared at him. He was shaking his head. "Negative, Spear. Mission OBJ." "Heart, you better be ordering us a transport out of here, or I swear It's the Oberst's son, Skip. He was the owner of the vessel they came on, Oberst Traurig. It suddenly clicked in his mind. What didn't make sense was how this Oberst convinced the Order of the Ancients to send 5 highly skilled secret operatives to this barren waste of a planet. Surely the Ancients couldn't be corrupted. They must see a higher purpose. Skip was yanked from his memory by the crackling of the radio. "Do you copy, Spear?" "Repeat," Skip said sternly. "You are to search and find the Oberst's son. He was on that carrier." Skip kicked the side of the carrier. "This was not the order, Hart. You cannot order us to do this. Skip, you will get this done or you will be abandoned here, lost to planet Palus." Skip clenched his fists so hard his knuckles turned white. "I have great news. The Oberst has already deployed a squad of soldiers and his own Grober to help you in your mission. We've dispatched another breach pill to land on your pulse spear location." Skip leaned his head back in frustration. "This mission calls for a quiet approach, Hart. You are sending us a Grober." "You should be grateful." Skip slammed the radio back into its hoist. Newbie sighed and sat back into his seat. He looked up at Skip. "What now, boss?" Skip whistled at his scout. Slice was at the edge of the fog, scanning the horizon. She turned and jogged over. Beef dropped into the water and climbed into the carrier. "Skip?" Slice asked, concern at the edge of her words. "Change of plan. We're headed to a nearby facility." Slice pointed to her blipper. "I saw it come online a few minutes ago. Hart's people must have uploaded it to the mission log." There was another green objective marker on the blipper Slice pointed at. 1,439 meters registered as the distance it was from their current location. Their conversation was interrupted by the crack of the sound barrier being broken. They all looked up to see their reinforcements breach pill rocketing down towards the pulse spear Slice had planted. "Clear the area," Skip ordered. The team moved to the side of the troop carrier opposite the pulse spear, putting it between them and the landing zone. The breech pill slammed into the ground, flinging mud, debris and insect high into the air. The panels shot open, outstepped the Grober in his golden armor. The average Grober stands at least a few feet taller than even the tallest humans and most silvers. Built like houses, packing Kurtz blades much larger than the norm. They are masters of destruction. Not much comes close to them in terms of close combat prowess or raw physical strength. Of those chosen, less than 10% survive the ordeal to become a Grober. The most ruthless physical examinations separate the weaker from the stronger. Then, the endlessly painful, mostly life-threatening genetic mutations weed out those lacking in mental fortitude. They are the pinnacle of the Silver military. Not particularly quiet, Skip thought. The Grober dropped down into the water. Even though they were 10-odd meters away, the group felt the earth underneath them shake as he landed. His golden ceranthium armor clicked and clinked with every step he took. It was so sturdy it could deflect plasma bolt fire at long to medium distances. The giant marched over and knelt at Skip's feet, saluting in traditional Silver fashion by clenching his right fist and placing it over his heart as he knelt. They were the ultimate fighting machines. "At your service, sir," he said. I wish we fought under different banners sometimes." Slice let out. The group looked at her. "Just to see if I could kill one, you know." She licked her lips. "Good to have you, Grober." Skip waved his hand in small circles. "Train, sir." The large man got up. He had a few metal implants on his face from either his trials or from combat. Come to think of it, he might be just what we need to make it off this damned world. The introductions were interrupted by vomiting sounds. 2 soldiers were hunched over, one vomiting, the other checking to see if they were okay. Another 2 were carrying supply bags. They put them down and saluted. Lucky for the group, the acid bubbling had stopped so they could freely walk around. The large insect creature with its guts spilt out to the side, however, was still there. It was most likely what caused the soldier to be sick. "Guess you drew the short straw," Beef said, smiling at them. He took a long drag from his burner. The other 2 saluted and joined the group. Skip called them over and pointed at his screen. "Our objective is simple. Search and find Oberst Traurig's son." He pointed to the green marker. "Once we have him, we'll call the ship in for evac." They all nodded in agreement. Sir, what can we expect in terms of resistance?" one of the reinforcements ventured. Skip pointed behind them toward the fallen creature beside the ship. "Them." "That's a small one," teased Slice, nudging the freshie's side. The soldier gulped. All 4 of them were dressed neatly in the Silver's traditional uniform. Their gear was well kept. Skip could tell they had not seen battle or any sort of combat for that matter. They were not prepared for whatever was ahead of them. "Any more questions?" Skip asked. No one said a word. "You new guys, stick to newbie. When things get hairy, listen to him. Most importantly, remember your training and don't panic." Their faces were all covered in full respirators, something that had been brought in during the Second War, when the rebellion's use of gas was commonplace. "Grab ammo and supplies, and let's move." Chapter 7, Don't Panic. The group trudged through the shallow water on the swampy planet. Slice was scouting ahead once more. Skip was at the head of the column, checking the screen on his wrist as the pulse spear illuminated their dots. So far no new targets, he thought to himself. The fog and swampy jungle around them seemed endless. Train, the Grobers, steps made a dull thud with every step. They had definitely lost the element of surprise if it was at all there to begin with. They navigated past low-hanging vines and swamp trees with deep roots and large bases. Everything looked the same. Without their blippers, they would be lost for sure. Beef and Newbie were at the back of the column. Newbie kept the new soldiers in line and distracted enough that they forgot why they were there. "Skip," chirped Slice over the comms, got eyes on the facility. "Copy, regroup on your position," he confirmed. They marched in a neatly staggered column, finally reaching Slice, who was staring at a fence and watchtower a few hundred meters up a muddy hill. It looked like there was an old overgrown path or clearance leading up to a large hole in the fence. "What do we have?" "Breach in the perimeter. Looks like that's how those things might have got in." Skip let out a frustrated sigh. "Means there will be more of them in there." Slice nodded. "I think so." She pointed to the mud below. The endless slop provided perfect conditions for tracking, and as far as they could see between themselves and the facility, hundreds upon hundreds of small holes covered the bog. "Eyes peeled." Skip turned to the rest of the column. Slice moved ahead. She had switched to her plasma rifle now. Her long gun was neatly folded in a gun case on her back. She spat out the shell of some nut she was eating as she headed up the hill in front of Skip. The column had all drawn its weapons, slowly progressing up the hill. The soupy fog had finally begun to clear, the slightest glimmer of a sun setting over the hill. It was nice to have their boots out of water, though the ground was still slightly wet underfoot. "You think we'll find him, Skip?" Slice asked, spitting out another shell of nut. Skip didn't respond immediately. Click! Fwizz! Get down! Skip shouted, but he was too late. The stark rope of a carver mine wrapped itself around 2 members of the Silver Squad. Train crouched down, putting his armoured forearm over his head. The rest of them dove to the side of the muddy path. "Damn it, I lost 2 more." Skip had covered his ears in anticipation of the loud bang. He looked up. The Silvers were tied up by the mine and its stark rope. They were flailing about on the ground. "Dud!" yelled Newbie off to the side. "Cut 'em out, Train!" The Grober looked around at Skip, then nodded. Train had a Kurtz and a Dulch dagger. Both were larger than usual to fit into his larger-than-usual hands. Train stomped over and cut them free with his dagger. They scampered away in panic and lay down next to the group. "Lucky bastards," Beef let out, chuckling to himself. "Old Mines, the facility has been here for a while," Slice said behind him. Nobody dared move. They were halfway up the path, too far up to go back and around, but not quite at the top, stuck in a minefield. "What you thinking, Skip?" Slice said softly behind him. Skip looked around. "Train, can your armor withstand a carver blast?" The Grober shrugged. "I'm thinking Train walks ahead and—" A loud shriek interrupted him. Down the hill, one of the creatures was perked up on its hind legs, screeching at them. It moved hypnotically from side to side. "What the hell?" yelled one of the Silvers, leaving his rifle behind as he leapt up and struggled toward the top of the hill. "Stop, soldier!" Skip yelled. The soldier paid him no attention, continuing up the hill away from the shrieking creature below. It slowly uncoiled its stinger. Beef aimed his machine gun downrange. The fleeing soldier grunted as he passed Skip and Slice. "Long range only. Nobody moves. Send it to hell!" Everyone fired their plasma weapons, red and green bolts raining down on the creature. It hissed and screeched, retreating deep into the swamp behind. It was a larger one, but nowhere near as large as the one that had been guarding the carrier. It disappeared into the thick, swampy mangroves. The group slowly eased up on their triggers. A loud bang from further up the hill turned their heads. A mixture of mashed flesh, severed limbs, and bodily remnants remained where before there had been a nervous soldier. Purple blood everywhere. Skip always found the colour of silver blood strange. It was dark purple, while the vast majority of known humanoid species had red blood. "Damn it!" yelled one of the soldiers further down, still off to the side of the road. "Nobody moves," ordered Skip again. "Train, follow the soldier's steps. When you reach the epicenter of the explosion, halt." Train nodded and started thudding toward the gory mess. Train's steps were much larger, leaving clear imprints in the mud. They had another 30 meters or so to go before they could reach the hole in the fence, before they could reach safety. Train turned around as he reached his designated position. "Sir?" Skip said nothing and looked at him for a moment. "I know these large creatures are made for warfare from birth, attached to an oberst to guard until they or their master dies. But under all that, surely there is still something to consider worth saving." "If anyone can survive a carver blast, Skip, it will be him," Slice reassured him. "Go ahead, Train. Get to the opening in the fence." The Grober nodded, his large armoured boots clearing the mud ahead of him. Chapter 8. Get off me! Skip nodded at Newbie. He was holding the broken fence open for them. They made it through without any further events. Skip let out a sigh of relief at this realization. The facility was a few decades old at least. The walls were covered in green moss and vines. The Silver Empire established these bases that doubled as research facilities. They built them on fringe planets like these to set up operations for further colonization. There were very few worlds or creatures that could resist their might or firepower. The abandoned facility did not inspire much confidence of finding the Oberst's son alive. The setting sun brought with it darkness. An already elusive enemy would be even more dangerous in the dark. Skip stood up from climbing the ladder on the watchtower. Slice had been there for a few minutes, scouting the place. "What we got, Slice?" She pointed to a central building. It had an overgrown courtyard. The building was the largest of them all, with a flat roof. The other buildings sat snugly around them. Some smashed greenhouses nearby added to the overgrowth in the courtyard. The concrete and metal buildings indicated the place was well established before it fell all those years ago. "Looks big enough to be a hangar," Skip suggested. She nodded. Could mean ships or a troop carrier, just what we need to get out of here. She nodded again. What happened here, Skip? He looked at her. Slice had been with them for 7 capital years. They had seen all manner of peoples, cultures, and beasts. This time, however, he feared the worst. I don't know, Slice, but I think Jumpy might have been right about this place. We'll make it out. We always do. She winked at him after a long pause. She slid down the ladder of the watchtower. I need some supplies for first watch, she said, her words trailing off. I'm not so sure about this time. He looked around for a moment, taking in his surroundings. A sudden, blood-curdling screech echoed out about the grounds of the facility. Everyone paused for a moment as the noise bounced off the various walls, making it sound like those creatures were somehow all around them. Skip rubbed the back of his neck, feeling the prickle of hair standing on end. It slowly died down and the team continued their preparations. Newbie was showing one of the soldiers where to hang his magazines for easier access. Speed is the key, he said, looking over at Train and Beef, who occasionally peeked around the corner of the building they were at. This was to ensure no creatures were sneaking up on them. Skip had made his way back to ground level now. He flicked the radio on Newbie's back on. Spear to Firebird. Status report, Spear. Entered facility grounds. No signs of the Oberst's sun. We will make camp in a nearby building and approach in the morning. The static crackled over the microphone. Negative, Spear. We need... I am not moving another inch, Hauptmann. More static. Copy that. Report in the morning. Over and out. Skip clicked the microphone back in place and whistled at Train and Beef. Open the building up. Get us inside and we'll set up camp. Yes, sir, the large Grober responded as he and Beef disappeared around the corner to search the building. Newbie turned to Skip. Skip, I really am sorry if I Skip shook his head at him. We can't think of that now. Save it, and we'll hash it out over a drink back on the ship. Skip grinned through his thick beard. Newbie nodded. Right, on the ship. The 3 Silvers were huddled together, trying to look brave in the face of one of their comrades being reduced to a bloody mess. Skip, we're in, Beef confirmed. Copy. You're gonna want to come and see this. Roger that, be there in a sec. I'll take first watch, Slice yelled from the watchtower as Skip climbed down. It made for a great overwatch position as they all headed inside the building the 2 had cleared. Skip nudged one of the Silver troopers close to him. Get some carver mines planted around the hole by the fence. He pointed to where they had come from. That bug appearing suddenly and then disappearing just a fast had unnerved him. Roger that, sir. 2 of them reached into a supply bag, grabbed the mines and headed off to the gap in the fence. Let's go set up for the night trooper, Skip commanded the remaining one. They entered the structure. Bones. Everywhere. On gurneys, some exposed, some covered by tattered rags. The atrium of the building was decorated with a, now shattered, glass roof braced by classic Galaxian-style beams. The beams met fluted Galaxian-style columns at the top of the walls, and twirling down the columns were depictions of what, Skip assumed, the trees living in the swamp used to be like. He noticed the walls were dotted with vague representations of medical symbols, as if hurriedly drawn by hand. Temporary hospital would be my guess, Beef said as they walked in. Skip inspected the remains on the hospital beds. All of them had bolt holes in their skulls. Can't be controlled if you have no brain. Mercy executions. You checked the back of the building? Beef nodded. Think it was a barracks before. He pointed to all the old dusty corpses. Some still wore their military recreation uniforms. The emblem of the towers, the same as his necklace, emblazoned the breast of a few of the ragged tracksuit jackets. Chow hall and bunks in the back. Skip nodded. This must be where they played brute ball, a sport played across the galaxy involving teams trying to push a funny-looking ball across a line. Tactics often came down to who had the largest players. Rules were loosely applied, especially in military barracks. Skip knew these places well through all his training and travels. Well, we've slept in worse. Get the exit secured. We found something. Beef slung his large machine gun over his shoulder and walked toward the back of the room. The door creaked open. Beef turned on a torch on his shoulder. The light shone over rows of neatly stacked bunk beds. Skip could hear the Silver next to him breathing heavily through his respirator. Skip pulled out a flare. Snapping the top off, he ignited it. The sparks flew into the dark room and he tossed it further down. Beef headed toward it. Get it off me, screamed the Silver, who was slightly behind them. Train turned. What is it? His deep voice bellowed. The low light made it difficult to see. Kill it! Kill it! The soldiers yelled, bumping into beds and footlockers. Skip dropped his rifle to his side, drew his curds and tackled the trooper to the ground. The soldier squirmed and wriggled. Skip finally managed to wrestle him into submission, holding him tight. "Is it on him?" Beef shone his torch on him. "I can't see it. Flip him." Skip rolled over, flipping the trooper over. "Still nothing." "Beef? Beef?" shouted Skip. He looked frantically at Beef. His gunner was frozen, staring at the ceiling of the room they were in. Skip has thought the nest in the carrier was bad. This was horrifying. The web-like substance held what looked like thousands of eggs, the massive nest spanning the entire area of the canopy. They seemed to react to his flashlight. Wherever they pointed the lights, the eggs twitched and writhed, the network of bug spawn pulsing like an organ of some kind. "Damn it," whispered Beef. Chapter 9. Vibrations. "Not a word," Skip said softly into the trooper's ear. He was breathing loudly with Skip restraining him. Skip relaxed his grip. The room had fallen silent. Train's lumbering footsteps had stopped. No one dared move too quickly. The room was very dimly lit by the flare Skip had tossed earlier. The trooper was fine. He had had a large web wrapped around his helmet. Skip showed him, holding a finger to his lips at the same time. Skip slid out from underneath him. He whispered to the Grober, "Don't move, Train." The big man nodded. Beef touched his shoulder and pointed ahead to the flare. Next to it was an open hatch. "Tunnels," Beef whispered. Skip nodded, then pointed to the exit. The rest of them edged their way back to the brute ball training court, leaving Train in the room. The trooper nicked a footlocker with the butt of his rifle, sending a loud clang throughout the mostly empty room. They could hear the eggs above them vibrate. From somewhere within the mess of web came a squelching sound. Both Skip and Beef shot an angry look to the trooper. They managed to sneak back into the main room. The other two troopers, having successfully laid the carver mines, stood around a small fire they were beginning to light up. Beef ran over silently, gently stomping the small embers out. He shook his head at the troopers. Newbie and the troopers looked at him puzzled. "What are you doing?" one of them exclaimed, his voice carrying across the empty room. "No comms," Skip joined them. "Absolute silence, do you understand me?" he said sternly. The troopers nodded. "Slice," he called over the comms. "Skip, building compromised. We found a nest. Get over here now." "Copy, on my way." They all shuffled nervously, careful not to make too much noise as they understood the sudden need for silence. Skip lit up another flare, tossing it in the center of the group. "Everyone okay?" Slice asked as she came rushing in. Skip nodded. "We're good. Change of plans, I would venture this place is swarming with these things." Newbie and Slice looked at each other. Beef and Train found a tunnel. "I think we head in there, get to that central hangar-looking building and hopefully find a working ship to get off this death trap of a planet." One of the troopers stepped forward. "Sir, what about—" "Your Oberst's mission be damned," Slice jumped in. The man didn't dare say another word. If anyone survived, they would head to where the ships were anyways, Skip reassured. The troopers agreed reluctantly. "You can stay here and end up like your friend outside," Slice continued. The troopers said nothing in return. "Enough, Slice," Newbie piped up. "Enough, all of you. This mission is simple. Get to a ship, and if the Oberst's son happens to be there, we grab him." Their faces were barely illuminated by the red flare. "We'll have to make a plan with Train," Beef reminded Skip. "Damn Grober's steps are so loud." "All right, we'll all head down the tunnel ladder. Beef, you and I will provide cover for Train as he runs toward us." They all nodded. "Not so much as a whisper," Beef said, looking around the group. "I'll take point," Beef declared as he walked ahead. He would turn his shoulder torch on and off intermittently, pointing at objects the group might bump into. In the barracks, the flare was all but spent. It sputtered with flickers of light here and there. Train had not moved. They could hear the creatures wriggling overhead in their eggs, squeaking and chirping, as thought they were waking up. Train had not moved. The Grober looked at them as they slowly made their way to the open hatch at the end of the room. Beef whispered the plan into his ear and then joined them at the hatch. The sound of their nervous breaths was heard around the room. Everyone kept to the plan. Skip lit up another flare and dropped it down the hatch. It bounced noisily between the ladder and the walls of the throughway as it fell. Skip held his palm to his face in dismay. He looked at Beef, who grinned at him as if to say, "Idiot." He looked down at the red glowing light. Seemed safer than up here, he thought. The first trooper started his descent. The rest of them were grouped around the hatch. Skip would softly tap their shoulder when it was their turn. Newbie was up next. He awkwardly made his way down, his stump of an arm not helping his cause. The final trooper was now on the ladder. "Now!" yelled Skip. Train began to sprint toward them, every step shattering the decaying tiles below. The squeaking and squelching intensified until they began to hear popping noises. They could hear clumps of something dropping onto the floor as the Grober finally reached them. Some of the creatures, now fully awake, made various clicking noises, communicating to their fellow brood about the commotion below. Others simply let loose with awful screeches or hisses. Both Skip and Beef had their lights on now. The hatchlings darted around the room in a frenzy. "I won't fit!" the Grober panicked. "What?" Skip looked at the hatch, then at Train's large body. "You have to try." "No, sir, you go." Beef had started sending volleys of bolts downrange. "Blast it, Beef!" Beef unclipped a popper grenade and rolled it perfectly between the neatly stacked beds, underneath the highest concentration of the swarm. It pulsed, sending tiles and bug bits everywhere. "Go!" yelled the Grober. Skip and Beef jumped down, skipping the ladder. Rolling into their landings, they managed to avoid serious injury. They heard Train straining as he stomped on the creatures. They made satisfying crunching noises under his behemoth boots. The humming of the brood faded fast. Train grunted as he made every effort to close the hatch. Beef clamoured at his back, shuddering. "Anything on me?" The group had formed a perimeter around the bottom of the ladder, weapons trained on the opening above. "Are you good?" Slice asked as she looked over Beef and Skip. "We are fine," Skip replied breathlessly. "I think we lost A sudden violent grinding shocked them all. "Skip!" yelled Slice, barging him out of the way. The Grober came down like a ton of bricks, landing on Slice's leg. The snap made one of the silver troopers double over sick. Train showed little signs of life. "Damn it!" yelled Beef. Chapter 10. Skulls. Amatilrung dropped down and clanged off of Train's armor. There was a staggered silence right before Slice cried out in gut-wrenching agony. "We shouldn't be here," Skip managed to think before Newbie yelled out his name. "Skip!" Skip jumped into action. The Grober lay motionless on top of Slice. She screamed out in immense pain, trying to free her leg. "Leave me, Skip, just leave me." "Not a chance," he said, holding her head up. Her left leg was completely caught under the monstrous pile of flesh and heavy armor. "We always make it, right?" Skip smiled through his beard. "Sir!" yelled a trooper. One of the creatures fell from the top of the ladder, rolling over on its side, and then it darted toward that same soldier. It latched onto his face, its many teeth attached to his respirator. The soldier squirmed, bumping into the side of the tunnel. "Beef, help him!" Beef dropped his machine gun and drew his dual clipper blades. The blades were heavy with a round edge, best suited for slicing. He circled the squirming soldier, mumbling under the creature who sat on his mask. Beef didn't panic. He just circled slowly, then suddenly, in a single masterful cut, sliced the thing in half. He simultaneously kicked the soldier backwards as green, sizzling blood shot out from the beast's halves. The light from the flare didn't provide much in terms of visibility. The trooper coughed, dozens of small bite marks and scratch marks all over his pale face. Purple blood streamed from the bites that penetrated his respirator and mask. Another trooper rushed over, unclipped his respirator and started applying magic glue. Skip tried pulling Slice free. He tried heaving her out, but she screamed. He knew it was bad. He had never heard her yelling like this. He had seen her after being shot, cut up and bitten more times than he could count. "Leave me, Skip. Just leave me." As she said this, Train slowly rose up. He stood awkwardly, clicking his neck. Skip brought Slice into a firm hug, cradling her. She sighed with some relief as the weight of the giant was lifted off her. "Train!" Beef called. The Grober turned around slowly, glaring at Beef with blind eyes. "He's being controlled," Newbie shouted as he tended to the injured trooper. Train growled at him. He gnashed his teeth and sent blobs of spit flying from his mouth. "Move!" yelled Skip. Without hesitation, he propped Slice onto his shoulder. One of the troopers joined in from the other side. "Get her to safety," he ordered. The other two frightened troopers ran over. Newbie took over from him as they made their way further into the dark tunnel. As he turned, he saw Beef skillfully dodging Train. Skip sprinted over. "Together, Beef," he said calmly. Skip fired 2 bolts into the Grober's armored back. One harmlessly deflected into the side of the tunnel, the other pierced the metal, finding its mark. Train turned slowly. His eyes were bloodshot red, purple blood and foam streaming from his mouth. He let out a loud, beleaguered grunt, then charged forward. Skip fired every shot in his clip, one bolt taking out a chunk of Train's jaw and cheek. The Grober slammed his fists on the ground, Skip barely dodging it. Damn, he's fast. Train stomped toward him. Skip rolled away, again narrowly dodging 2 meaty forearms slamming down next to him. The monster looked him right in the eyes before raising his massive arms again. Train groaned as his right hand disappeared. Beef had run up the wall behind him, jumping forward, slicing his exposed hand clean off. one of the few places not covered by the hardened armor. Train looked at the stump. Plum-colored blood shot out of the wound. "Now, Skip!" In one fluid motion, Skip drew his curs, dodged a wild swing from Train and took 3 of the Grober's fingers with him. Train reared back in pain and screamed at them. They heard a few thudding noises behind them. Skip looked around, only to see more of the creatures from the nest above falling down through the hatch. Skip remembered milliseconds too late that a Grober was trying to kill him. As he turned his head, met Train's forearm, flattening him. His ears ringing, he tried to find his way up, but he couldn't stay on his feet. The Grober raised his arms high above his head, preparing to obliterate Skip, but just as he was poised to do so, Beef slid under his legs, leaping up and slicing his throat open. Purple blood gushed from the deep wound. The large silver keeled over, finally succumbing to his injuries. Beef helped Skip up. "You good?" Skip's vision was still blurry. "We have to move, Skip." Train groaned, his head tilted back. Purple blood covered his golden armor. "These things don't die." "No half measures, Beef." Beef nodded. He sprinted toward Train, dodging a few insects lunging at him, teeth bared. Beef carved another in half. Train managed to prop himself up on his knee, but as he got up to walk, he fell forward on all fours. Kneeling, he met Beef's determined gaze. It didn't last long. Beef was on him before he had a chance to move, clipper blades moving through the Grober's neck once again, only this time, Beef followed through. As Train fell, his head slid slowly from his neck, landing and rolling away. His enormous body hit the ground, shaking the space the group found themselves in. Skip could hear sizzling, which meant Beef had cut the damned creature as well. Beef pulled the pin on a grenade, dropped it at the top of the Grober's neck stump, and ran over to help Skip up. The popper grenade sent insect and Grober chunks everywhere. The pair rounded a curve in the tunnel. Beef unclipped a canteen, gulping the water within it down. He poured some of it over his head and then gave some to Skip. Skip slurped at it. Skip tapped the blipper on his arm. A part of it had cracked during the fighting. He saw Slice and the rest of the group further down the tunnel. She had planted another pulse spear close by. "Good work, Slice," Skip thought. "Must have been here for a while." Beef pointed to what looked like a rail cart link at the top of the tunnel. "We need to move, Beef." Skip let out a tired sigh. Beef acknowledged with a quick nod. "Lost my gun," he said in his rough voice. "We almost lost everything back there." Beef smiled at him. Chapter 11. A little further. They moved ahead, Skip checking the blipper on his arm. It would flicker a few times, then he would tap it, and it would return to normal. The tunnel was a lot larger than they expected. In fact, it was massive. Before, they didn't have the time to admire how big it really was. They figured the early teams knew how dangerous it was to travel on the surface, so they built this elaborate tunnel network. Until the facility and base fell. A gust of wind would tug at his beard intermittently. Their shoulder torches illuminated small areas of the tunnel. They were showing decay and random piles of rubble. Sometimes they would pass old crates. Some even had some old Empire helmets in them. The rest of the group's dots were closer now. "You reckon we'll find a ship?" Beef said in a low tone behind him. They kept their wits about them, scanning all around as they slowly walked toward the rest of the group. "I think we'll find one," Beef continued. Skip didn't say anything. "Here." Skip stopped. "They should be here." Skip scanned around. The vast tunnel seemed endless. "There!" Beef ran over to a small metal door in the side of the tunnel. He softly knocked 3 times, paused, and then a 4th time. The door creaked open. It was a grim scene inside. Newbie and a trooper sat around Slice, trying to mend her crushed leg. It was bent a few different ways. The Weaver back on the ship would have no trouble with this. That ship seemed so far away now. "Skip, you made it," she said, her voice hoarse. They were holed up in a maintenance room of sorts. There were large metal machines with a small back office further on. The hefty-looking generators and old screens confirmed his initial thoughts. This was a node which they had used to manage certain parts of the large tunnel they had built. "We dealt with Train," Skip confirmed. "What's your status?" "Leg is screwed," she said, wiping a bit of blood from her lip, smiling at them. Skip walked over and unclipped the microphone on Newbie's back. "Spear to Firebird, come in." The light static crackled. "Spear to Firebird, how do you read over?" "Nothing." "Must be the tunnels," Beef said behind him. "You know where we are?" "Map's back there, Skip." Newbie pointed to the small room in the back. Skip walked over and stared at a map etched into the wall next to a few monitors that hadn't worked for quite some time. "We're headed in the right direction as least," he noticed, as he traced his finger along the trail they were following. The tunnels ran under the entire facility, just as they assumed. A few hundred meters and a few turns later, they should be right underneath the main building. Their best chance of finding a working ship. Skip knew Hart and the Oberst would never send down a rescue ship unless they could prove the Oberst's son was alive. Skip knew the chances of that was slim to none, and he wasn't willing to risk the lives of his squad to find some worthless brat who probably thought he would rule this planet one day. Skip studied the map some more. He plugged a cable from his blipper into the terminal with the monitors next to him. No response. No power. Damn it. Skip jumped up from the small office chair. Skip joined the group in the main room again. All right, listen up. Everyone looked at Skip. We're not far from the building we need to get into. He pointed to a green marker on his cracked blipper. The tunnels run right under the facility, just like we suspected. Did Train make it? One of the silver soldiers sniffled. No, Beef grumbled. We'll head up to the main building, which appears to be a hangar, from what we could see anyway. Slice winced at the pain in her broken leg. We need the power on so we can open the roof of the building so we can fly a ship out. I can help Skip, Newbie piped up. Skip turned to him. Yeah, I studied Imperial launch facilities during training. These doors can be opened manually. The control room should have what we need. Skip nodded. All right, we head to the control room, open the roof, and then we get off the planet. You've seen a ship? Another trooper ventured. They all looked at him. It was a valid question, but one no one could answer. What other choice did they have? It was either hope the ship or carrier was there, or die hopelessly in this hellscape. The soldier stared nervously at the ground. Almost there, troops, for our empire and our towers, Skip said, trying to reassure them. Even I don't believe myself. Skip knelt down in front of Slice. I need you to hang back for this one, Slice. Skip, I can... Not a question, Slice. She let out a frustrated grunt and swore in her native Sati tongue. Never thanked you, Skip said, looking at her frowning face. Thanks for saving my life. She said nothing back. Skip turned to Newbie. Stay close to me. If we can't open the roof, we are dead. Newbie nodded. Of course, Skip. Don't you find it strange? Newbie continued. We only saw those few troopers dead in that brute ball arena. Where are the rest? Somewhere up there, probably, being controlled by those things. Glad we don't have to deal with them right now. Your gear good to go? He asked him. Newbie nodded. Skip stood up. We move out in a few hours. Everyone scurried around, tapping their rigs, checking their rifles and blades. Slice handed her rifle to Beef. Skip drew his Kurtz and plasma pistol. Let's get this done. Chapter 12. Frightened. They were right on top of the green marker on Skip's screen. A similar ladder to the one they had first come down led up to an equally similar hatch. This is it then, Slice said behind him. Two of the troopers were supporting her from either side, carrying her weight. Skip wished he had Train to help carry her up the ladder. You're up first, Skip pointed to the only other trooper not supporting Skip. Me, sir. Get up there, trooper. Time these grunts earned their Oberst's loyalty. The trooper hesitated for a moment, then started making the climb up to the hatch. Skip felt lucky to not have seen any more of the damned creatures down here. He dreaded having to send his squad through another ordeal like before. Might have to cut me free, Skip, Slice smiled. No way I'm climbing that with my leg in this shape. Put your back to Beef's. She positioned herself with her back to his. Skip pulled a rope and some clips out of one of the equipment bags on a trooper's back. Pull this around her, then across her arms and legs. They followed instructions. She sat snugly against Beef's back, balancing on one leg. Skip clipped them in. All right, go. Beef nodded. His dark hands latched onto the rungs of the metal ladder, climbing up confidently. It looked like he was carrying no extra weight at all, ascending up the ladder with Slice strapped to his back. Skip remembered how he and Beef would pretend to be vagabonds, and Beef would earn them Selton for drink in bars all across the galaxy by arm-wrestling drunk soldiers or brave-looking men. He'd never seen anyone that strong. A Grober, sure. Didn't do any good for Train, though. Skip followed behind. He was last on the ladder. Everyone climbed up. The lack of plasma bolt fire and yelling was a good sign, at least. What we got, Skip said, looking at Beef. They were all huddled around the hatch. Newbie and one of the troopers further ahead peeked out the door. It was the ship's supply room. Various bolt rounds and larger cannons decorated the room. Even the massive Fest cannon rounds were stacked on a few pallets over in a corner. Munitions room, Slice said. Looks full, Beef chimed in. Good signs. There might be a ship left, Skip thought. He walked up to the front of the room, maneuvering through all of the various rounds and bombs. The double doors Newbie and the trooper were at were wide open. Probably stuck like that since the power went off. Anything? He asked Newbie. Newbie pointed ahead. It was early morning now. The sun had not risen properly yet in the early morning hours. Visibility was, however, very much improved from the terribly lit tunnels below. The ammo room led into the main hangar floor. It seemed, Skip thought, like they might make it out of this place. "Is that a ship?" said Newbie. "I think so." The monstrous thing was covered by a large sheet. "Has to be a ship. All right, I'll check in with command." "Spear to Firebird." The static crackled in Skip's ear. "Damn it!" He clicked the microphone back in place. Slice and the rest of them were in a column behind him. "Beef, Newbie, and you two with me. Slice and—" "Gomerick, sir." "Gomerick, you stay with Slice. I'll call you when we have the control room secured." Slice nodded at him. "Let's go." They headed into the hangar. Silver spacecraft were enormous. Hangars were built to accommodate all manner of ships. They knew piloting one would be senseless. Most of them came with troop carriers on board. They only needed one to fly up to orbit, where Hart and the rest of them were waiting, where they would be safe and rid of this damn place. So far so good. They inched their way across the hangar to where the control room was. Open supply crates and pieces of decaying tech were strewn about the place. A massive root had grown through the center of the place, cracking open the concrete, vines and moss ever present on almost every wall. A trooper accidentally kicked an empty bottle. The sounds echoed across the open hangar. Beef shot an angry look at him. They were halfway to the control room. They could see its windows overlooking the hangar. Most were broken and overgrown with lush plant life. "Stay close," ordered Skip. They kept getting closer and closer. So far so good, Skip thought. Their shoulder torches illuminated the immediate area around them. They had reached the opposite side now, pried open a metal door and walked up a stairwell, passing a few dusty bones garbage. They clicked the door to the control room open. Beef rushed in, pointing his plasma rifle around the room. Skip followed close behind. Then finally, Newbie and the two troopers. "What the—" The control room was silent. Thick dust rested on all of the equipment. Sitting at the desks were 3 dead Silvers. Each of their heads sagged down. Dried purple blood sat in clumps down the shoulders and chest of 2 of them. Then suddenly the third looked up. "It's moving," the trooper said behind Skip, his rifle trained on the thing. He squeezed the trigger. The bolt missed and hit the wall behind it. "What the hell are you doing?" yelled the third trooper. "You're alive?" Skip asked. The soldier stood up. He had a cap and a cape on, as was standard for officers in the Silver Empire. "Yes, don't shoot." "Who are you?" Skip asked. "I'm Feldwebel Ersch." "We're looking for someone. You wouldn't be Oberst Traurig's son?" Newbie asked, trying to diffuse the tense situation. "My father. Is he here? I knew he would—" Beef scoffed. "Your father on a place like this? Number an Oberst would set foot on a place like this." Chapter 13, Our Scars. "We've got the control room." "Copy, Skip, on our way," Slice confirmed. "What happened here?" Newbie walked over to Ersch, who lunged forward and hugged him. The Silver officer whimpered. I thought I would die here," he said, squeezing Newbie close. Skip came up behind Newbie, trying to reach headquarters once more. As Newbie pried him off, he asked him, "What happened here?" "Well, our pilots were shot out of the sky, and we so headed here, hoping we could establish communications or fly out of here on another troop carrier." Ersch let go of Newbie and stood back. He wiped snot and tears from his nose. "Why didn't you fly away?" pointing at the massive spacecraft down in the hangar. "We couldn't reach it." "Damn it," yelled Skip, slamming the microphone onto Newbie's radio. They paused a moment, then Ersch continued. "One of those things, it has control of the ship." Beef sighed deeply. "Of course it does. Our pulse spear must not have been able to detect them so far above it." "Skip," said Slice. She and Trooper Gomerick joined them. He turned his head quickly to acknowledge them, then back to Ersch. "What about them?" Skip asked, pointing at the 2 dead soldiers below the console. "When we couldn't get to the ship and we had no communications, well, we—" Beef scoffed. "Couldn't even do that right." Newbie shot him a fiery look. "Get the roof open, Newbie." The youngest team member nodded. Ersch whimpered. "I'm sorry, I know I've disgraced my family. I know a soldier should—" "Enough of that, we need to get out of here," Skip chimed in. Newbie walked around the console, gently tapping its metal exterior with his blade. "Here." He opened a panel below the main console and reached in. "Come on. Where is it?" "Ah, there it is," he said as he pulled something, and there was a loud thud overhead, a grating noise, and one of the hangar roofs slowly slid open. "Beef, with me, will draw them to us. Rest of you set up in the windows, show them our Empire's might." They took up positions on the windows. Even Ursh summoned the strength to pick up his plasma pistol and stand by the rest of them. Steady my hands, O great towers, help me get my people home safely. When we lure them out, get ready to slide down the rope. Skip was tying the harness and rope around a sturdy, bolted console leg. We'll let them all follow us up here, then we bar them in. We will need to be quick. They heard a loud screech from the direction of the ship. It was long, continuous and deep. He let down the rope. Let's move, Beef. They ran downstairs and into the open hangar. The sun had begun to pour in overhead. It was a beautiful day, all things considered. The men pressed on, Beef's golden earrings jiggling rhythmically with his steps. The ship's ramp was down. They slowed as they got close, breathing heavily from sprinting. A gentle breeze tugged at the torn sheet supposed to be covering the ship. They walked up to it. They started making their way up the long ramp leading to the ship's wide doors. Most of their ships were square in design, usually adorned by many autocannons for ship-to-ship combat. This was a smaller ship, a Firebird if Skip had to guess. Even so, it could survive for weeks in space with a crew of 100 soldiers, servants, and a flight crew. It was much smaller than the one that brought them to this wretched place. They inched their way up the ramp. The entrance was dark. Skip tossed his last flare into the darkness. As the red light illuminated the inner ship, hundreds of eyes shone in the near pitch-black cargo bay. There was a screech from behind all of them, and they stormed forward. As they exited the darkness, Skip was taken aback. He'd never been charged by an army of fellow silver soldiers. They growled and hissed as they clamoured toward him and Beef. "Move it," ordered Skip. They ran as fast as their legs could carry them down that ramp. The vessels fell off the sides. The others formed up, sprinting toward them. They saw flashes of red and green as the bolts started flying toward the vessels behind them from the control room. They clambered up the stairs, narrowly escaping a few grabs at their backs. There were hundreds of them close behind. They didn't have to wonder what happened to the remaining staff of the facility. They were all here to greet them now. Skip and Beef sprinted up the stairs. The doors slammed shut behind them. They breathed heavily. 2 troopers held the door shut. The controlled banged at it loudly, growling. White foam flying every which way. Skip confirmed the hangar was clear, at least from what he could see. The horde was groaning against the door. Newbie and Gomrick pushed a heavy table in front it. "All right, down we go," ordered Skip. "Gomrick, you and Newbie first." "Sir," confirmed Gomrick. They jumped over and rappelled down, running toward the ship. He tapped the 2 holding the door now behind the table. They ran and slid down the rope. Beef, Ursh and Skip took their place. They strained as the mass of controlled individuals bashed the metal door. Skip turned his head to Slice. "Slice, get on Beef's back." She was slowly unfolding her long gun, clicking the barrel and stock into place. Precise, calculated movements, just as all her years of training had taught her to do. "Slice, get your ass over here. You go on now, Skip. That thing won't leave its nest. You need a clean shot to take it down." "Slice, no," yelled Beef. She cleared her sights, slid it onto the polished rifle and loaded a large caliber bolt into the chamber. She smiled at them. "Go now." "Send it," ordered Skip. They let go and slid down the rope, their hands burning from the rope. The larger creature scurried out of the ship, baring its rows of teeth at the group gathered at the base of the ramp. Skip had finally caught up. The thing hissed terribly, slime dripping from its mouth. It would not leave the entrance. It scurried from side to side, but not a step toward them. A nest, Skip thought. "It's getting hairy in here, Skip," came the comms from Slice. "What now, Skip?" Newbie asked. "Is this where it ends? So many things done, so many missions completed. Is this the one that ends it?" "To me," Skip bellowed, charging forward. Beef drew his clippers. One-armed Newbie charged forward, roaring as he fired his plasma pistol. All the troopers, even Ursh, charged up the ramp. The creature was double the size of any they had faced so far. Skip was certain that death awaited them, but they were part of the glorious Silver Empire. Retreat is punishable by death. Only forward for these brave souls. As they charged, Skip dodged a leg that had been trying to pierce him. He slid under the beast, running his blade across its belly, green acidic blood spilling behind him and onto his blade. Another trooper stuck his bayonet into a leg and was sent flying off the ramp, his body crumpling into the solid ground below. Beef hacked off the tip of one of the dozens of legs. Ursh and the rest fired ferociously, bolts flying into its thick hide. It stepped back into the darkness, scampering away. Skip tapped at his shoulder, ripping off a piece of sizzling uniform. "Form up," he ordered, so they formed a staggered line at the entrance. Suddenly the bigger bug appeared again, screeching as it did so. It hissed and bared its teeth. Rearing up on its hind legs, it uncoiled its stinger, preparing to shoot. Without another word, Skip charged at it. No one even had the time to react. He dashed ahead, Kurt's blade in hand. What a way to go. Crack! The group dropped as a blue flash burst the beast's stinger into pieces. Acid blood rained down on it and the surrounding area. It swayed side to side, finally tumbling off the ramp. It roared desperately as it fell, the noise piercing the ears of those closest to it. "That one's mine, Ski." Slice's comms cut out as the mob of hijacked silvers burst through the windows of the control room behind them. "Go, go, go!" yelled Newbie as they sprinted into the dark ship, Newbie leading the way. "Up here," he pointed to some narrow steps. They ran down a few more corridors and into a troop carrier. They heard the grumbling and shuffling of the undead Silver Army coming their way. "Everyone on?" Skip looked around in desperation. The console clicked on, the craft making ignition sounds. "Punch it!" Newbie started the engines. They sputtered for a few seconds, then kick-started. He detached them from the main ship and flew upward toward the open sky. The light blinded them, and suddenly they were up, traveling ever heavenward. He looked around. Beef and Ursh were there, Gomeric and the other remaining trooper. Slice, he thought. "Unidentified craft, identify yourself or you will fired upon by an Imperial ship," came over the ship's radio. Skip clicked a button on the console. "It's us, Hart." "Skip, did you find the boy?" "We got him." Newbie looked over at Skip. "We always make it back." Skip looked down. "Not all of us.